Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our weekly Haikyu to the Top discussion series. And before we get into the video proper, I do have two things that I have to address right off the top. Sorry. First things first, I gotta give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter, at Matthew3645, at Korinji-san, at Ophelia Main, at FireOtaku845, at Kisa-chan84, and at Deep Not That Deep. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Haikyu video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout out the first 10 of you in next week's video. And not only will the first 10 of you guys get a shout out, but you will also be entered into, you guessed it, the giveaway. So I'm really honored to say that the good folks over at Right Stuff Anime were cool enough to say, hey, it's Haikyu season. You want to do a Haikyu giveaway? And I said yes, thank you muchly. Although I'm not gonna lie, guys, whoever wins, know that I'm furious with you because I desperately want to keep this box set. And yes, indeed, you heard box set correctly. Whoever wins will be getting the premium box set for the first season of Haikyu. The stuff you get in this box set kills me. I wish I could keep it, but alas, one of you good folks is gonna get it yourselves. But it's not just the box set, because Right Stuff was also cool enough to send a $25 gift card to the runner-up of the giveaway. So, to explain the giveaway, it's really quite simple. All you gotta do is make sure that you're following both me and Right Stuff Anime over on Twitter, and yes, I will be checking, and then share the video like you normally would. And remember to tag me, that way I can see it, otherwise I will have no idea. But yeah, all you gotta do is share this video around on Twitter, tag me, I'll see it, and then your name is entered into the giveaway, and I'm going to throw all the names into a randomizer and pick who's gonna win this premium box set and the $25 gift card. You'll have exactly 24 hours to get your name entered into the giveaway. After that, I am going to be selecting all the entries, throwing them into a randomizer, and selecting the top two to win the two prizes, and I will be messaging them immediately afterwards. Also very important, if you do enter the giveaway, make sure that your Twitter DMs are open so that I can let you know that you won, and then get all your info so I can send you your prize. And of course, a big thank you to the awesome people over at Right Stuff. Seriously, this is just the friggin' coolest thing. If I may get a little bit real, I was a little bit touched that they would even ask me to do this with them, so everybody watching, my good folks, if you could send them some love, send them some thank yous, that would be much appreciated. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about this week's episode of Haikyu, shall we? So digging into the episode, as I've been doing with the recent videos here on the channel, instead of going through the episode scene by scene, I'm just gonna kind of talk about my favorite parts of the episode, or at least the things that spoke the most to me. And in regards to Haikyu to the Top Episode 2, Lost, the two biggest things that spoke to me, that reached out and grabbed me and shook my Haikyu love and heart, is the fact that Washijo is being a grumpy old man, and our reunion with Ushijima, Tendo, and the rest. Let's go ahead and start with Washijo, because if I am 3000% honest, this man is petty. Now, I haven't read the manga for Haikyu, so I don't know if maybe this is all a big lesson, but I will say that I am secretly hoping that Washijo is not actually this petty, and that this actually is to try to teach Hinata, like, the fundamentals of volleyball that maybe he's missing. Although, like, Hinata's already a good player, so you should really be nurturing him. One of the other people, like, one of the other coaches who is there, even says, like, he's being really harsh on Shoyo. Like, I would be, like, really nurturing this kid and turning him into a volleyball pro. I'm not really sure. And the other players, the other coach says, like, Washijo's team lost to this kid, so maybe that's why. Maybe he's taking it on him. He's like, I can't believe that he would be that petty. I don't want to believe that Washijo is this petty, because it felt like he sort of, not learned a lesson, but his ideals were confronted by some hard truths in season 3, so I figured that maybe he would take a shine to Hinata as, like, a representation of the path not taken for him. But no, it seems like he's, at least from what it seems like, it seems as though Washijo just has it out for Hinata. Now, I am hoping that that is not the case, but if it was, I'm not necessarily, like, upset by it, although I am upset by it, if that makes any sense. I think writing-wise, it's very human to have a character in a position of power do this to somebody who, in their mind, has slighted them. As far as Washijo is concerned, Hinata's some young upstart who really isn't all that talented and is really only boosted by those around him. We know that ain't true, but Washijo probably sees it that way. And I'm of two minds, because like I said, I have to believe that he is not this crappy of a person, that he would not do that to Hinata. But at the same time, he possibly could be doing that. But if I'm totally honest, and where I'm really at, I have to assume that this is all just to kind of build Hinata up as a solo player. It's the same thing I said last week, where it feels like all these characters are, at least our main three, right? Like the top three of the group. It feels like they're all going off on their own, not to be separate from Karasuno, but to build themselves up as solo volleyball players. And it feels like maybe Washijo is trying to do that for Hinata by forcing him to be a ball boy, forcing him to start from scratch and build his way up. That is a motif that really runs throughout the entire episode, and that is easily the strongest theme in the episode. And that's why I actually think this episode rises above last week, and I really enjoyed last week. But last week also hinges on the fact that we haven't seen these characters in a while, so just reuniting with them at all would have easily given it an A tier. So it's a little bit unfair. But here, this episode really works to impress us with solid writing and a solid thematic through line throughout the whole thing of Hinata struggling to come to grips with the fact that he is alone right now. He doesn't have the team, and he has to improve. He has to change his perspective and work from the bottom and crawl his way back to the top of the mountain. And I think that that's really interesting. And I do think that that's what Washijo is doing. Unless maybe he is just that petty. I mean, he is voiced by an absolute legend, Ryusei Nakao, who happens to voice another extremely petty character in Frieza. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Washijo kind of reminded me a little bit of Nakao's version of Frieza. A little bit petty, a little bit aggressive there. And I mean, for crying out loud, when you think about it, the old man's even got Frieza's color scheme. He's white and purple. He's Frieza. Okay, maybe that's a little bit harsh. He's not Frieza, but he is being a little bit too cruel to my boy Hinata. Like, he's taken a little too much out of Hinata, like constantly shouting at him, like telling him he's like not doing a good job at being a ball boy, like just yelling at him, berating him, like trying to get him to leave. And I really, again, I refuse to believe that he is that petty. He very well could be. He seems that way, but maybe it's to strengthen him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I gotta say, regardless of whether or not this is on purpose, it sucks to see my boy going through this. I hate seeing Hinata this, well, to use the episode's title, lost. It sucks seeing him this lost and confused and not even angry, but just upset and like trying his best to figure things out. And you could tell he's feeling frustrated and just, yeah, lost. Lost is the perfect title for the episode because it really does feel like Hinata is well and truly lost. And it's difficult to watch, man. It's honestly difficult to watch this character who we've seen come so far to be pushed down into the dirt once again and have his bright, cheery demeanor actually challenged, like properly challenged, and to see him struggle to get back up. It's pitch perfect writing. And I really do feel like it's pitch perfect. Like the fact that Hinata going through this is so difficult to watch only works because of how much we care about him. Seeing Washijo get so frustrating on screen. Every time I saw Washijo, I'm like, ooh, you angry, bitter old man. Like, but that's not, like, it's not poor writing, it's expert tier writing to get you to feel those emotions. Not just the theming, but the dialogue, just the ways certain scenes are set up, even down to the metaphorical stuff, like Hinata's leg getting wrapped up by the court, like getting like attacked by vines and stuff. Like, it's all pitch perfect writing. I'm so impressed with how well this episode was handled in terms of its writing. It's really, really great stuff. We always tend to think of like the hype moments of Haikyu, that Haikyu hypu, you know, we always tend to think of the hype. And it's true, the few shows deal out hype in quite the same way that Haikyu does, but people tend to forget just how well written this show is. Its characters are fantastic. Its situations are brilliant, and I feel like the reasons why the hype is so strong is because you truly, truly care about the individuals at the center. And speaking of some of those characters in the center, I gotta say, Suki, Suki might be enjoying this a little too much. Some of the characters are enjoying seeing Hinata brought so low a wee bit too much. Like the first year from Shiro Torizawa, like being smug around Hinata and like kind of like ignoring him when he saw that Hinata was struggling. I was like, boy, if you don't back up. Again, it's tough to watch because it's like, of course, the first year from Shiro Torizawa would feel that way. He's a first year high school student who lost his biggest match and probably feels to some degree responsible and a little bit resentful towards Hinata. So I don't blame him, even though it's frustrating and I kind of wanted somebody to just spike a volleyball into his face for being so rude to my boy. But Suki's allowed to be rude to Hinata because they got that built relationship, you know? They have history, those two. And Suki, like I said, enjoying himself a tad too much. I was like, Suki, back off, my boy. Like when Hinata tries to apologize, just being like, hey man, like listen, I'm sorry for causing you all this trouble. And Suki's like, yeah, if you're gonna apologize, maybe just save it. You being stupid isn't anything new. Oh, are you gonna cry? Oh, are you gonna run away? Oh, it's too bad. Better pick up the pace, ball boy, and stuff like that. Like, Suki, chill. It was hard to watch, but at the same time, it's why I love Suki, right? Because he's able to push those buttons and get away with it. And I think, and again, maybe this is just me being a little too hopeful like I am with Washijo, but I think and I theorize that Suki was doing that on purpose. I mean, obviously he was doing that on purpose because he likes to be shitty to Hinata, but I also think that at this point, over time, the Karasuno crew, while yes, they definitely do get under each other's skin, and even at the beginning of the season when we see Hinata and Kageyama like getting under each other's skin, getting in each other's face, and Hinata's friend from his class is like, how are you two even, like, are you guys even a team? It's true that they act like that, but that's just the way that their dynamic has evolved. That's how their family functions. They like getting under each other's skin, but they would do anything to protect each other. And I think that on some level, even though Suki loves to pick at Hinata, I think he also is aware that Hinata can't fall because the whole team would fall apart. So he's also pushing Hinata on purpose to be like, yeah, that's right. If you leave, I'll never let you forget it. So you better like buckle up. You made this decision, dumbass. So you're gonna have to deal with it. And like, even though I don't like the way that he was talking to my boy, I have to agree with Suki, pushing him in that direction to be like, you did this, like you decided this, stick with it because you're here now. So that's how I feel like Suki was handling that situation. Suki could have just been being a jerk to be a jerk for all I know, but that's not the way I read the scene. That's not how I view Suki. I do think he's a jerk on purpose. Like he likes poking fun at the Karasuno gang, but he does so under the assumption that they know that he means well. At the very least, he on some level cares, and I do feel like he's not trying to push Hinata away. He's just trying to challenge him to keep going. That's how I viewed it. I could be way off. But speaking of the Karasuno gang, even outside of the Shiro Torizawa training camp thing, Hinata's not having a good time. Hinata's not having a good... This whole episode should have just been called Everybody Hates Hinata. Because, like, my goodness, everybody had something to say. Like, Tanaka's like, yeah, well, you're kind of sucky, so maybe you should improve your skills anyway. But don't freak out about it. Like, you could tell Tanaka was, like, just screwing with him. And then Nishinoya just running up and, like... Nishinoya was the only one who was just, like, happy to see Hinata. He's like, hey, there you go, man. Like, how's like, training camp? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, he was the only one, but everyone else had something to say. Oh, my God. Especially, like, Daichi just screamed at him. Like, Daichi really gave Hinata shit, like, really screamed at him, and I felt bad, because, like, I wouldn't want Daichi screaming at me, and I am significantly older. Like, that would still intimidate the hell out of me. Daichi, and the fact that Hinata's, like, on the ground, like, nervous, it's like, yeah, poor Hinata. That whole scene is great with Daichi, but what I love is our disappointed parents in the form of Takeda and Ukai. Ukai would definitely be the dad in the situation, while Takeda would be the mom, where the dad is like, he's upset and he's angry, but he's trying to understand why you made the stupid decision you made. You know what I mean? He's like, why did you do this? And then at the end, tries to be a little bit encouraging. Whereas Takeda is like harsh, disappointing words, and then the dismissal, and then we're just gonna pretend like that didn't happen. But Takeda I honestly feel like even though Daichi screaming is really intimidating, and Ukai being upset is also like, oh, please don't be mad, Takeda-sensei freaking, like, oof. If I were Hinata, I would almost rather him scream at me. Because those words were so icy cold, I swear to God it started snowing outside of my window. They were so cold. Takeda-sensei, you can really tell, was very disappointed with Hinata. And I feel like of all the characters who were disappointed with Hinata, for some reason, like, Takeda, that one hit the hardest. And it kind of broke my heart seeing him be so disappointed with Hinata. Everything with Hinata in this episode broke my heart. Like, at the very least, Ukai is like, okay, well, what's the one thing you can do there that you can't do with us? And that is be the ball boy. But, and we'll get into that in a second, but it just kills me to see everyone be so disappointed in Hinata. He was just trying to do what he thought was right, even though, yeah, Hinata, that was stupid. But I do think that Hinata might have figured stuff out, because like I said, Ukai tells him, what's the one thing you can do there that you can't do here? What's the one thing you can learn in this camp as the ball boy that you can't with us? And whatever it is, Hinata seems to have figured it out, because he like basically just buries his head in what looked to be training mats, and he's just trying desperately to like think his way out of the situation. And I love that Takeda even says, like, we need to get them to think. It's nice to try to give them the right answers at every turn, but it's also important to get the students to really think about what's important to them and how they can continue to improve. And then that's mirrored by Hinata desperately trying to think his way out of the situation and hearing the words of his teachers. And he pulls his head out, and he seems to have figured it out. Now, I don't necessarily know what that is. I genuinely think that what Hinata has figured out is that he can learn by watching, like the watch and learn type of technique, and by being the ball boy. By being the ball boy, maybe he can get quicker reflexes. Maybe he can try to understand the other players, get a sense for how they play, and then take that in and maybe morph his own playstyle. I don't super know. I'm probably way off base. I'm not gonna lie, I felt really dumb because when Hinata figured it out, I'm like, good, I'm glad you did. I think I know what you're thinking, but I don't super know, and I feel really dumb because of it. But regardless, I'm just happy that Hinata seems to have found some light at the end of the tunnel, because man, my boy went through some hell in this week's episode. It was not pleasant. But I've talked enough about Hinata and the whole Washijo thing. I now want to just touch briefly on the whole return of Ushijima and Tendo. Can't forget about Tendo, and I guess the rest of Shiratorizawa, I guess. It's really all about Ushijima and Tendo, if I'm honest. Before I get into Ushijima, I just gotta address Tendo, because Tendo is truly an enigma. Like, there are very few characters in the show quite as insane as Tendo is. Like, I feel like Tendo isn't really even on planet Earth, or at least he ain't from here. Like, just the way he reacts to things, he's one of the more goofy characters in a sea full of goofy characters. Like, he is the one that seems the most off his rocker. And I mean, that makes sense given like the character who we came to know, that whole guessing monster motif that he had going for him back in season 3. Like, he really is just a monster to play with. While he's not quite as intimidating and like an all-round beast that Ushijima is, Tendo is a super skilled player in and of himself. And seeing him see Hinata again and his interactions with him were fun. And it was nice to see Tendo take on almost like a sort of like mentor type role. It's very brief. Like, we only see him kind of lecture one of the students on like, hey man, just because we're at the top of the net doesn't mean you gotta like spike it through. You can do other shit at the top of the net. So it was kind of cool to see him like talk to the other students in a sort of more third year type of mentor role. I would like to see that continue in the future episodes. Tendo as a as an instructor is kind of a bizarre concept, but I can more specifically see Ushijima kind of taking on that role, even though he's a lot more soft-spoken. I can see him being like the quiet mentor for these first-year students. But speaking of Ushijima, I suppose it's time to talk about the return of Ushijima. I was genuinely kind of surprised. We do see Ushijima in the OP, but I was not expecting to see him re-enter the series as early as we did. Although I guess it's kind of like, of course he would. It's his school, so like of course he would reunite with these characters. Of course he would jump back into the show as soon as possible. They're practicing at his friggin' school. But I don't know, I just wasn't expecting to see him as soon as we did. Regardless, I'm happy because I feel like there's so much you can do with this character, and I feel like it was just kind of a bummer to see him be like, I'll beat you next time for sure. And I just assumed that we probably wouldn't see him again for like arcs upon arcs, but he's back here, and I think that's really cool. I would also like to point out that a lot of you, like an alarming amount of you, were Hinata and Ushijima shippers. I saw you in the shipping video. I'm surprised. However, I will say, when I saw Ushijima and I realized the situation that Hinata's in, I started being like, am I gonna end up shipping this by the end of the season? Am I really about to become a Hinata and Ushijima shipper? Is that what my life has become? Am I that much of a shippy dude that I'm just like, yes, give me all the rare pairs? Like, is that what I have become? Is this what my life is? Yes it is, and it is glorious. Although, I gotta say, I don't ship it quite yet, because Ushijima just like, he metaphorically spikes Hinata into the ground with that, what are you even doing phrase. It's like, oh, right in the heart, god damn. Just destroyed Hinata with words. And it was one sentence. What are you even doing? Crushed him. You can tell that crushed him. That crushed me. I could only imagine how Hinata felt. And the two of them are genuinely visibly baffled by the fact that Hinata's not, A, wasn't invited, and B, isn't even being allowed to play. Like, sure, he's a ball boy. He's technically not supposed to be there, but they're visibly confused by this, like both Tendo and Ushijima. And yeah, it's just, it's weird. Even the other students point that out. It's weird that one of Karasuno's top players isn't being allowed to play and train with the other students. Tendo even brings this up, like, why aren't you playing with us? And then that's when Ushijima delivers the, like, what are you even doing? Boom! Drops the bomb! With everything said, I gotta say that seeing all these different characters from all these different teams all in the same training camp, and I'm not even just talking about Hinata's training camp when you think about it, because there's 2 training camps going on. Technically 3, because Karasuno's also training. But the amount of characters that the show is juggling right now, you'd think would be like overwhelming, and at points it is. Like, there are moments where there's almost too many characters, and I'm like, wait, slow down. But with that said, I do feel like the show is actually doing a really good job at juggling all of these characters while still trying to tell Hinata's story. The characters don't get a whole ton to do, but when they do get moments to shine, they really do, and you kind of want to see more about them. It's a lot of characters. And it's definitely a trap that a lot of sports anime tend to fall into, the point where they get too many characters and too many teams and it's hard to keep track of. But I do feel like so far, so good. I do feel like even though there's a lot of characters, I'm still excited to learn a lot more about each of them. But with that said, everybody, that's basically all my thoughts on this week's episode of Haikyu. I am happily going to give this one another A tier. I do feel like thematically, this is the stronger episode between the 2 that we've gotten so far, and I feel like this is the one that has the better writing. So this episode easily gets an A tier. Once again, a big thank you to Right Stuff Anime for allowing me to host this giveaway, and make sure that you guys enter the giveaway. It's a friggin' box set for Haikyu, and it's so cool. I'm immediately jealous of whoever wins. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and before we go, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks over on Patreon, especially those in the Earl Grey tier: Andrew W., Calvin A., Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G., Digger the Fox, Dominic G., Ionos, Urza, Ginkutaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Marshall B., Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Stephen G., Sakochi, Tristan G., and Verdun. A huge thank you to all of you in the T Squadron for your continued support, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. And with that said, we're gonna wrap up today's video, everybody, so thank you all once again for watching, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.